Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. You have me, your host, Jen Cutts, and our special guest, as always, Black Strider. If you want to say hello,
Hello. Um,
it's kind of weird. All right, gonna get logged on. So today we're gonna talk about our Reservoir League Round 3, Season 2. We faced up against State 266, Alliance AUH, which I don't even know if the Asinos Unidos. I cannot speak Spanish.
um, I don't think people need to know the right pronunciation.
All right. So I'm on my Twitch from where I streamed. You can catch the description down below and a link to my stream account when we go live. I pretty much stream every night around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Uh, so we're gonna fast forward. We did all the prep. Now we were going into uh, this pretty. Hold on. Sorry. I guess I'm gonna have to play it like this. So when we're going into this matchup pre-paired, as we look at the Reservoir Raid score and looked at their hive and just comparable matchup against our power individual HQ levels with theirs, and then we were going to see the first 10 minutes how it was going to play out. Uh, Black, if you wanted to kind of kick it off with what happened after that.
As Jen said, with Reservoir League, you get the luxury compared to normal raids where you can have a little snoop around beforehand and see what exactly you want, like who you're facing, etc., etc. We had a big nosy around. We had a look at their hive. They had a fair number of 5 stars, but their power levels respective to ours was very low. I think it'll be shown later on in the stream today. And essentially, knowing that the next 2 weeks for the semi-finals and finals are going to be tough, I think it's quite fair to say our mentality today was we've got the stronger team. We're going in. We should get the win. So again, this week it was about getting everyone the maximum rewards, getting people ready to upgrade just naturally and also in preparation for the other raids. I'll let Jin take over from that.
I actually got a little distracted as I was playing around with my setup. But yeah, I think we went a little bit beyond the 10-minute mark, but we were trying to, last week we talked about, hey, getting everybody points, and this time we kind of like, well, what opportunities we can take, and could we kind of let other people figure out themselves if we were to step back. Although we didn't do that too much because we kind of went back into the points thing. But I think we the opponent was actually put up a little bit more fight than the previous alliance, and it was good because that allowed people to really test their marches against settlements and kind of like trial and error and realize, hey, maybe it's not the best thing to do to just zero out your troops, where you can actually join rallies or put yourself in a position where they can attack you, because if they attack you, you got all the troops in your settlement plus reinforcements, and you can gain points rather quickly. And the places where you want to solo march or gather is where the gather spots are, because it's a 1-for-1 battle. And the safe zones, always check the safe zones. We did leverage the safe zone there to get some points. If you see in the screen right now, I went from 2 accounts to 3. I don't usually do 3 accounts when it's a tougher opponent. But in the top right screen, you have little cuts, and a couple of our alliance members right there on their safe zones, and just kind of enticing them or taunting them to really attack our settlements there, which they took the bait. And for those stronger players, when they were approaching the highest point threshold that you needed to get all the rewards, we decided, hey, why don't you guys just spread yourself out into the buildings and get your last points just by holding the buildings, while the lower players got to go and have fun fighting.
So, in fairness to AUH compared to PH1, they approached the matchup probably quite smart. For us, a lot of our players are kind of used to getting their points from defending buildings, attacking, and it's constantly a constant battle. And with these very different style ones, because they're not used to being aggressive or looking for points actively, they had a good chance this time to learn stuff. We tried to coach them through some basics when attacking bases, what to do, what not to do. But AUH, for their position and their matchup, I think they played it well. And even though they lost, I imagine they probably got quite a good few points themselves in terms of reaching the maximum rewards for a loss. They opened up from safe zone, so from the get-go we couldn't look to put pressure on them.
You made a good point though, as far as like if we were them against UMC, I think if you didn't have enough points, you can't be behind the safe zone. You got to go and make yourself a target. Because it's always good to get attacked, and that's the fastest way to get the points. I think, right? As far as personal score goes.
So, I would always suggest if you're going against a stronger alliance, and for whatever reason, when you discuss amongst yourselves, you decide it's a loss, you just have no chance. For instance, if you log in and you see that their top, let's say, 10 players have more BP than your entire alliance, and you just realize, yeah, this is completely hopeless, I would say always start the fight properly. Have your strongest players rally the buildings. Perhaps don't go straight away for the biggest buildings where you know it's going to be a pointless exercise, but go for the smaller processing plants. As Jin said, and I think Stefanos also said on last Sunday, you get twice the amount of points in terms of reaching the ranking milestones for attacking a building rather than defending, which I thought was quite cool. So if you focused on the smaller buildings, yes, you will lose the game anyway, but you're more likely to win that march, take the building, get rewards that way. Second of all, in that kind of situation, the other alliance is going to very quickly realise, oh wow, they don't have a lot of firepower, we can probably just go zero them out and just dominate the game. In that situation, you very much want your players to reinforce each other, especially your stronger players.
Yeah, so on that note, when I mentioned earlier, and I was talking more like towards the end game when you're like getting dominated by 350,000 points. If you're behind the safe zone, you got somebody, you probably have a top player at least that's probably got their points. What he can do is reinforce the smaller players who have not hit that threshold. Go ahead and reinforce, and then those smaller players can go out into the battlefield and basically be able to absorb harder hits. If you know that your rally chances of attacking a building is slim to none, I think personal score will rack up rather quickly, because at the end, the opposing team is going to probably want to zero you out so they can get the points for their alliance.
So yeah, if you're on the losing hand, I guess.
Yes. Yeah. I was trying to put myself in their shoes.
Oh yeah. So if they played that right, they would have reinforced their smaller players. Because some of our players ourselves who are looking to attack marches, I'd always say some basics, as in never send past your second strongest march when you're attacking a base, because the stat reduction in your march to what you're attacking the other base, it's too big a drop off, and especially when you're attacking someone's base and they, let's say, have 500,000 troops. If you can't win with that first and second march, I personally stick with my strongest march most of the time. Second march is when I know there's a bit of leeway, and I have to be so conscious of my march.
So I don't know if you're you're watching the stream. I paused it right here. There was one time we were trying. There was one of our players couldn't finish. She had to go in the middle of the match, and she was sitting by munitions factory in the bottom left, as you see on the screen. And so I tried to change. Somebody suggested to change your name to try to get them to go there, and now you see on the screen. I was trying to communicate to the other opponent to attack our member at the munitions factory.
Yeah, that was a bit of fun, which everyone loved. But yeah, for sure. One thing which I'd like to use my go-to, especially against other opponents, is one of your stronger players will take a bunch of, let's say, 3 or 4 of the weaker ones who haven't quite reached the point threshold, all drop together with your rallies. Or at least what I did with Mushu, or tried to do, is find a cluster of them, we all port in together. My first and second march, straight away I choose 2 bases. I do a 1-minute rally on their bases. With my rest of my marches, I'll then go to reinforce their bases, so they have a higher chance of defending their bases if they get counter-attacked. And then even if we lose against those bases with my first and second march, them joining my rally and attacking those bases will get a lot more points from wounding the other enemy's troops. And depending on the time crunch in the fight, I will always try to rally those 1-minute rallies with 1 troop of my own, so their troops are doing all the damage and taking all the glory and points from that. More increasingly, especially against the 2 alliances we've just faced, they kept porting around, and I mean, it's fair enough, you don't want to take a rally from a 5-star, but it's something always to try and be mindful of, especially when you're in a cluster, because if they all move, then that's just unfortunate. But at the same time, relocators in raid are very expensive, and if it doesn't naturally refresh from the helipad, each teleport just keeps on stacking up incredibly fast. I think it's like 1, 2, 4, 6, and you know, but after a certain point in the game, if you're not spending lots of money on the game, or you haven't been hunting for relocators like a demon the whole time for raids, they're going to go really quickly.
Right.
So it's something to keep mindful of, because even if it's a suicide march and I'm rallying against their strongest player, he's stronger than Mushu, and I do that 1-minute rally, yes, we probably will lose against that person, but he's most likely to take the hit. And if I'm just doing consecutive rallies, 1-minute rallies, and they're sending their troops to rally this 5-star, he's getting points by taking it and winning. Second of all, my players are getting more points from rallying this person and wounding his, let's say, Plasma 5 troops in return. That's a very quick way for them to get their points, and it's a lot more efficient in terms of their troop numbers if we're talking the last 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Let's say they only got 400,000 troops left. If they fill up my rallies, let's say 3 times with this amount of troops on that base, rather than trying to solo march a 5-star or 2-star, whoever left on the pitch with those marches, joining those rallies, they're going to get a lot more points from what they will be able to do themselves. So it's always something to be mindful of. And before I wrap up, because I've just talked for a long stretch there.
Usually I interrupt you by now. I
know. But because for Jin and I, the last 2 raids have been very odd, very unusual. We've never been in a position where we actively had the time to look for players getting their points. Normally we're prompted by other rank 4 to look at certain players who's joining rallies so they can get there. It certainly adds a different dimension to the game, and there's always something you can improve on.
Yeah, I like when we, we were like some of our members, we were kind of like, hey, everybody started now getting more accustomed to looking at the scoreboard as the last Reservoir raid plus the one before that. We had an opportunity to try to get everybody points. But guess what? Now everybody you don't normally get that opportunity, but now everyone's kind of like, well, where do you check the points? And so now people are now policing themselves to make sure they're on the point, checking the points. And the top players are like, hey, I've hit my points, I'm stepping out, and now they're scouting around the map and saying, okay, go here. Here's a marker, or over here. We're helping the other people accelerate to get points. Now, last week we had didn't have that much activity on our opponent's side, so it was a little bit harder to do. But in this case, we had a lot of people now talking on Discord, directing people. Some people that don't normally talk as much were talking more. It got a little bit more exciting. So it's actually cool to see that a shift in our own alliance. Kind of, they don't even realize it, but they were. You can tell they're having more fun because now they're like, all right, they got a goal, they're on a mission, and it's actually a personal mission. You don't always get that in these types of events. There are times where we do forfeit the opportunity to get everyone points. It's a matter of getting the win, and we'll probably start to see that a little bit more as we progress with the season in Reservoir League.
So yeah, whilst it's been a nice and welcome change, I think also at the same time, if it was like that every week, you would get one of our favorite events would probably diminish in fun. And I imagine next week's debrief will be a lot more interesting. We expect a proper fight from what we've seen initially of our scouting. We'll keep an eye on them because we're assuming for them, like us, they've got survival of the fittest. So we'll watch their growth, we'll watch ours, and yeah, hopefully it'll be a really interesting way to talk about.
Gonna be a tough one, but we are. You can't settle for a plan to work every time, and we realize that. We're always looking ahead. Well, Reservoir League allows you to get to see your opponents a little bit further out than you would on a normal Reservoir raid match. But through this season, we are really actually being tested on evolving our plan at a rapid rate, almost like from week to week, and that's just building our playbook. So look forward to a different strategy. Might be some surprises, and then we might find some things that might not work, but look forward to an interesting matchup next week.
So on that note, just a flavour. Our first debrief we said against EDC, they were a lot stronger than us. They definitely had the more firepower. On paper, they probably should have wiped the map with us. Should have given us a lot more of a harder time than they did, and we're able to come away with the win. We're currently number 3 alliance in our state, and are number 1 and 2 in their groups, who are also second ranked or second seed in their group. They both lost that stronger matchup against their opponents. So just to put that in perspective for other people who may not be the strongest alliance in their states, there's always a way to, depending on how your plan goes, to win these tougher fights. And that's kind of the mentality Jin definitely tries to instill in me.
I know. I was impressed that you said that today on the call. I was like, oh, okay, there you go. I like what you're saying.
No, as in, I obviously am optimistic, but at the same time, I get very excited and caught up in the moment, and it's, at least for me, quite important to realize the stakes and be like, there can't, in the heat of the moment, those decisions, there's no going back. So kind of my mentality is pressure makes diamonds, but then at the same time it can also burst pipes, so might as well focus on making the diamonds.
Nice metaphor there. I like that.
Yeah, because if I know what's coming my direction, I'm less likely to, I don't know, burst like a pipe. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Yeah. But okay. I think we can leave it at that, and maybe highlight some things. And if we spoke a little fast, just replay the video, hit that like button there on the bottom right, and look forward to another week where we do debrief a much stronger matchup. Black, you have anything else before we close?
Well, this is just in case we'd be streaming the Capital Clash, I know we're doing it for points before a match rather than competing. Yeah, just want to know if you were planning and if people here wanted to have a watch, if it's going to be an option.
Oh yeah, we can talk about that. I'm still kind of like new to streaming. I've been actually doing some other streaming projects, but it's, you know, my schedule is not really set, unfortunately. But at some point, I'll be able to put some more, you know, structure around when I stream on YouTube, when you can expect me on Twitch, and what types of events to look forward. So you almost can expect. I'm still building it right now, but you can almost expect that when there is a big type event, there's going to be some kind of stream. And if there wasn't one, there might be some kind of stream shortly after to talk about it. Because I think there's a lot of, you know, good things that come out of recapping an event versus even the negatives, the positives. There's something that you can take away from in your state, even not necessarily the event itself, but how the state cooperated or did not cooperate towards a grow in the state or going against an opponent. And, you know, we got new things coming out. Migo is coming out. Now you got Survival of the Fittest that's got cross-state competition. You know, does that actually, you know, tweak your strategies to win? So it's going to be interesting. So stay tuned. Keep coming back to the channel. If you hit that subscribe button, you know, you'll get the notifications when I go live. And if you miss it, you can always come back. That's one thing I like about YouTube is the videos will be here to stay. And yeah. Anyways, thank you all for joining us, and we'll talk to you next time.
Bye.